passionate about it. I grew up in the industry, started working at Vineland Estates when I was 16, and I mean, many of these, all of these actual wineries are near and dear to my heart. They're premium world-class wines, and we are a world-class wine region here in Ontario, and we are very excited to show you why.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's, again, this program and these producers that got me into the position that I am right now, hearing about this passion. Working, and toiling in the winery and stuff like that, and seeing the fruits of your labor, that was the passion that I want to kind of bring out to my customers as well, and to kind of teach that story and show them that they don't have to go far to get something really, really good.
Yeah, there's a great staycation and wine region right in our backyard. I mean, even Prince Edward County is 2.5, depending on where you are in Ontario, actually, it can be very far away.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, visiting where we are right here in Ontario, there's no better time.
Yeah, and don't forget Lake Erie North Shore as well. They've got some fantastic wineries and some fantastic facilities out there as well.
Mm-hmm. Great destinations for you to bring your family and really enjoy the regions and the wines. And today, as we go through our tasting, we highly encourage everyone to sip and savor responsibly as we go through our tasting. And I have a lot of people also ask me, people who are new to, people who have come into the country or maybe haven't dove into the Ontario wine region so much, why Ontario is such a fabulous wine growing region. And I always say, well, we're a cool climate.
Right.
We have this amazing climate where we can grow grapes. We have limestone, we have the escarpment, we have natural wonders that have helped make our region so incredibly amazing.
Yeah, you've got some really, really innovative winemakers as well that are able to adapt to anything, adapt to the hot summers, adapt to the very, very cold of the winters, and the work that they do in Prince Edward County to hill up vines and things like that, because it's just a straight plain. You do whatever you need to get the job done, and the result. It's wonderful stuff.
We've got juice here to taste, and
yes.
I'm very excited about it. And I think the other part, you mentioned great talent. I love that. We have a great region. We have wonderful talent. We also have a board that controls how the quality of wines, grapes, and juice that go into here. We have the VQA.
Yes.
And that's really important, too, to make sure that the wines that you buy have VQA on them. That means 100% of that juice, the grapes, in this bottle is from Ontario, and I think it's very important for people to know.
Absolutely. It's also a mark of quality, and it's a mark of place as well, so that and then you can rest easy knowing that everything did come from your own backyard.
100%. And I think when we talk about grapes, they are fruit, much like many things else in this world. Here in Ontario, we grow cherries, we grow peaches. There are certain fruits we grow here in this region that we can't grow down in Florida or in warmer temperate climate regions. So cool climate grapes and fruits are here because of a reason, and that's very important. So we have 5 grapes here that we're going to go through that are kind of the established grapes of, I would say, the region.
Yeah, the best definition of what we do.
Exactly.
And the beautiful thing is as well, from different appellations as well. So we'll get a good cross sense of what we can do right across the province.
And we are in the northern wine growing belt here across, if you look at the map as a whole, for there's a southern wine growing belt, and there's a lot of experimental places sort of above and beyond both those both that areas. But in the north growing belt, from 40 to 44, we're in that belt, and there's 17,000 acres in Ontario that's populated with grapes. So I mean, there's a lot of wine to explore.
Exactly, 17,000 acres, stretch across 180 wineries and then 160 VQA acknowledged wineries. So again, marks of quality, and a lot of people doing a lot of good work.
Yeah, I think we should get into this tasting. What do you think?
I think so.
Well, let's dive into our very first wine. We have our Henry of Pelham VQA Riesling. And I don't know about you, but Riesling is one of my favorite grapes of all time. I consider her the princess grapes in the world of wine royalty. I love her so much. I did get her tattooed on my arm. So I always say it can be either Riesling or Chardonnay, which we're coming up to next. So.
Of course. We wear our passions on our arm,
Exactly. Wear my heart on my sleeve and my wine in my hand.
And this is done in such a classic style.
I mean, Riesling is ultimately the most lovable grape in the world. I say that with a lot of passion, because I feel like even though it is, the Germans have kind of coined it as their grape, their superstar grape, here in Ontario, it has this lovable soul. I mean, like you said, there are many places actually in Ontario that are doing appellation-based Riesling. So you can find the most minutia of details in Riesling vineyards and winemakers and in bottles across our province here. And to me, it just it's an aromatic wine.
Yeah.
It smells good.
Yeah, you don't even have to, put your whole nose into the glass. It's just gonna blast right out at you. You have those fantastic citrus notes. You have that fantastic peach, that really, really nice floral note as well. Touches of honeysuckle even as well. This is a varietal, like you were saying as well, so incredibly site selective. This is something that really represents that idea of terroir. You can line up 20 different examples of a Riesling, from 20 different wineries across the province, and you're going to get a wine that's going to taste different from sample to sample to sample.
I mean, one of the best wine writers in the world, Jess Robinson, is like, where's everybody on this Riesling movement? So if you don't love Riesling, you need to learn to love it. It is nothing like your grandparents' Riesling. It is everything but elegant and wonderful and world class. And the wines from Ontario the Riesling from Ontario to me is just, it melts your heart.
Yeah.
And the food pairings with it are just
of course.
Some of your favorite foods.
Oh, of course. You can do something like a really nice curry. You can do something, if you want to get into seafood, something like a scallop, something like a shrimp, for example. But diverse in the sense, incredibly ageable. Sit this down for, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. Revisit it at special events, a special anniversary or something like that. And you're going to get something that is going to tell not only the narrative of that year and that harvest, but something that will tell you a story of what it's been doing since it's been resting.
Oh, it's a wine that can really tell a story. I mean, Riesling's one of those wines where I've been lucky enough to have some old Rieslings in my wine wardrobe, and pulling those 2012s out, or that 2009, or that first time you've ever had an aged Riesling, it's mind blowing. Like, there's an emoji attached to it. It's very exciting, because there's a reason you age wine, and sometimes those reasons are hard to know unless you actually have tried aged wine. And aged Riesling is not only is it an affordable way to find wine to age in your cellar, but it doesn't take that long to really see a difference in how the wine ages.
And you bring up a really, really good point, and something that we should say as well. In terms of affordability, all of the items that we're trying here today, all under $20. So you are getting something where the entry isn't a really big jump, but at the same time, again, diverse, and again, a really good example of what we're doing here. So
once again, fabulous wine to drink on its own because it has that little bit of sweetness, but that racing acidity, which makes it balanced, classical, and elegant. And then, favorite foods if you're ordering in sushi. This is a fantastic thing. Green curry, like you mentioned. Try some of your favorite Asian dishes, and this is where it's at. So this is the pairing you really want, and I think this will probably be one that you really fall in love with.
And come back to again as well.
It is definitely a good old reliable, isn't it?
Of course.
Now heading into number 2.
Yes, Chardonnay.
Chardonnay, the queen of grapes, the most planted grape actually in all of Ontario, and I actually think it's the most planted grape in the world, the most widely planted white grape in the world.
From Wayne Gretzky's cellars, Chardonnay, something that is done in a really, really, again, different style. Because for a long time, you're looking at Chardonnay, it becomes this neutral grape, and you have a lot of producers that are coming out and doing things and taking the time, and you have got these winery controls that are really bringing out what the grape can do, number one, and what these producers can do, number 2 as well. So you've got something that's going to have depth, creaminess, texture, aromatics.
Chardonnay is a winemaker's grape. I mean, there's a lot of wines that are made in the vineyard, and there's Chardonnay, and it's made in a lot of times in the winemaking. And you can't deny every single wine in the world is made in the vineyard very first and foremost. But Chardonnay has this ability to be a winemaker's canvas, if you will, where they can, put it into stainless steel, and it's crisp, refreshing, built for summer. You can have it a little bit, just like this wine is, a little bit of oak. You've got that creaminess, that butterscotchness, that smokiness, but I can already tell it has that peachness, that fruit, the stone fruit, the citrus. It comes out, it balances it out. I mean, Chardonnay is such an interesting grape too, because it, world class, known for it in Champagne. It makes some of the most expensive wine in the world over in Burgundy. It can be completely unoaked and done in a blend, which nobody knows about. And then it has all of this in between, from wild fermentation to, American oak to French oak. And it has this playroom for winemakers, which is what makes it so incredibly hard to shop for, which is what makes your job so important on the floor.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I have, and my product consultant brethren and sisters, we are here to, explore all these wines and tell you all these little different particulars of these wines.
Chardonnay is a very nuanced wine, and I think if you're looking to dive into the world of Chardonnay, there's definitely a whole world for you to explore. So having some guidance on the way is really important, talking to those people on the floor to help you understand what your style is. And I know the LCBO has done a really great job on putting wines into specific styles, and I feel like a really good job of helping people understand, find what your style is.
Right.
You know, much like your fashion style, your wine style is yours and yours alone. No one can argue with that type of style. So figuring out if you like things fresh and fruity or rich and dark, it's all up to you. And don't worry, your style can change just like your fashion style according to the weather.
All depends on how comfortable you are.
Exactly. Now on to our Pinot Noir, the heartbreak grape.
Yes.
Now immediately I'm looking at this and I can see the difference in color between this and the Cabernet Franc we have.
Really nice, really light, really delicate. Prince Edward County, Rose Hall Run. Near and dear to my heart. Dan Sullivan and the guys and girls out there have been doing fantastic work for a very, very long time. And again, this is proof positive. We talked about the weather that Ontario experiences, and this is the absolute same for Prince Edward County as well, where you've got, just flat plains, so you're gonna have really hard, arduous winters. So you're gonna have to take controls to make sure that you've got fruit in the spring,
Exactly. No, a lot of the wineries, like you were talking about earlier, they hill up the vines. I mean, we think about why we're cool climate. So we do have harsh winters here, and we've all been privy to those. And I think that, grapes give us fruit in the summer. They flower in the spring. They give us fruit in the summer. We harvest that during harvest season, which we're in right now. And then as the winter comes, they hibernate. And if it gets too cold, a vine can die. Yeah. So it's very important for the livelihood of a winery and a winemaker and a wine family to be able to protect their investment. They always say in the wine business, if you want to make $1 million, you start with 2. So we're all very interested in protecting the investment of our farmers and our wineries,
Oh, absolutely. It's a year-long job. And I mean, you get something like this, really, really nice fresh cherry notes, really, really nice raspberry, really intense aromatics on here as well. You have to you have to duck in there just a little bit. It's not like the Riesling, so.
Exactly. I would. It's kind of like elegantly hidden, right?
Yes.
You've got to really search for it, and that's the other thing with great Pinot Noirs. 100% that is true. You've got to find great people that know those gems in the rough, too, because the heartbreak grape, Mother Nature doesn't always allow you to make a perfect vintage or the most wonderful of wines. And so, Pinot Noir actually means black cluster, and so at the end of the day, if one grape in that cluster goes off because of a disease or, because of too much rain, however it might be, that entire cluster actually gets given back to nature for next year's vintage. Yep. So it's, there are big vintages when it comes to cool climate, and there are small vintages when we come to quantity of wines. And so that's why it becomes a heartbreak grape.
Oh, absolutely.
Because Mother Nature doesn't always allow you to make an abundant amount of wine every single vintage.
And you bring up a really, really good point. You mentioned something like rough and earthy and things like that. And that's something that you find in really, really good Pinot Noir as well. And that comes from a lot of different particulars. Number one, the fact that there was so much limestone in Prince Edward County. So you've got these traditional varietals like Chardonnay, like Pinot Noir, that are going to do exceptionally well there. And you're going to have, again, a style that is a point of difference from what you're finding overseas, but again, point of difference from what you're finding in Niagara and Lake Erie North Shore as well. So you have this earthiness, you almost have this like savory, almost umami characteristic. Then you can start to bring out things like, talking about a pairing like a mushroom risotto. Yeah. This is a wine that I would suggest that you can be experimental with your dish, because I mean, something like this is just going to be able to bolster and complement something incredibly well.
Well, and the other reason too is it is a lighter-bodied red wine. It's not a very aggressive red wine with big tannins and lots of oak. This is much more of an elegant black dress type of wine where there's fluidity to it. There's softness. Not only can you see it in the color, but the skins of a Pinot Noir are so thin you can't extract color. So it has this softness, this subtleness, this smoothness, which is why it's before full-bodied red wines in our tasting. Is that it's meant to be very soft and subtle and lovable as a red wine. So if you're not a big red wine drinker, this is sort of where you dive into the red wines, because as soon as you get into the Pinot and the subtleties around Pinot Noir, you're usually hooked to the wine world for sure.
Of course, of course.
And I really like the idea of the mushroom risotto, because that heads back to that sort of, even those truffle notes too. We're headed to Burgundy, or like even just a little bit of northern Italy, where you're having all these amazing ingredients that help to elevate the wine, which is what you want in any food and wine pairing, is to complement each other to bring out the best, right?
Of course, of course. So next,
So we had the princess, which is the Riesling, the queen of grapes Chardonnay. We had the prince, I would consider, Prince Pinot, and then we have the king of red grapes, Cabernet Franc, because many people don't know, but Cabernet Franc is actually the father of Cabernet Sauvignon.
Yes.
It out in the vineyard, Cabernet Franc and Sauvignon Blanc got together, and genetically they made Cabernet Sauvignon. So if you love Cabernet Sauvignon, you can't help but love Cabernet Franc.
Absolutely. And this specimen here, Featherstone 2017 Cabernet Franc. And again, looking at our aromatics, really, really nice cranberry notes, really nice cherry notes as well. Touches of vanilla that you're going to find from influences from the winery. You almost find the beautiful thing about this variety is that you almost get almost like a savory, almost like pyrazine note. So you almost get a bell pepper note that just adds a little bit of freshness to it to kind of accentuate and kind of complement the acidity that you're going to find on here as well. The beautiful thing about this varietal is, in Bordeaux, it was used as a secondary blender. It was kind of a complement to Cabernet Sauvignon-based wines, to Merlot-based wines, and it would be put in the blend and used to kind of buttress those wines. However, here in Ontario, what you're finding is that producers are letting the grape stand on its own. So all of the elements that we just talked about, that really fresh red fruit, that really nice pyrazine, it stands at the fore, excuse me. Beautiful thing as well is if it is going to go into a Meritage blend, you are going to find that this is going to be the principal grape. This is going to, be upwards of 50%, 55%, and they will use those, Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon as the secondary elements. So this grape is allowed to shine through.
The one thing you bring up some amazing points, and I think that Cabernet to have a world-class wine, there has to be elegance,
Yes.
and elegance comes through in freshness. And another word for freshness is acidity.
Yes.
And so those three words are they all mean the same thing in very different ways. But to me, because Cabernet Franc is a little bit of an earlier ripener, it's secured itself if we happen to get an early winter or not the best summer, and so we can make really high quality Cabernet Franc almost year after year after year after year, especially with the talent we have in our winemaking, so many of our winemaking teams. And I think that to me, Cabernet Franc is a bit more of Cabernet Sauvignon has got broad shoulders and it's really out there. To me, Cabernet Franc a bit more subdued, a bit more elegant. It has a little bit of that sort of cranberry fruitiness, like you said, a little bit of that umami and a little bit of that black fruit, which to me is like this combination of a red wine you're gonna love.
And I think that you bring up a really, really good point. The fact that, you hear Cabernet and everyone kind of automatically goes to Cabernet Sauvignon. And the one thing that's, in kind of describing this wine to everyone is that this is distinctly not Cabernet Sauvignon. This is a point of difference, so don't think that you're going to get that heavy brooding shoulders that we were just talking about for Cabernet Sauvignon. This is, however, at the same time, this is a wine that you can absolutely pair up with that flank steak. This is something that you can pair up with barbecued items. This is something that is going to give you a little bit of ageability and a little bit of diversity as well, because you can turn around and use it in ice wine as well.
Yeah, you can use it in ice wine. I love a good Cab Franc ice wine martini. It's got skins to kind of last itself into the winter, but 2 parts, 1 part vodka, 1 part Cabernet Franc. It's and some frozen grapes as garnish, and it's amazing little ice wine martini.
Wow.
But to me, this also from a food pairing, I could order my favorite pizza.
Yeah.
And this is gonna pair perfectly too. So it doesn't have to be a complicated pairing. It can be some of your tried and true favorites too.
And this is the thing as well. I mean, as much as we're dressing up these wines, you bring up an incredible point as well. The fact that these wines can be, they can let their hair down, as it were. These are wines that you can just come home after a long day of work, enjoy with some takeout like we were mentioning before, and just enjoy it as is, or if you have that extra special events, they show pretty well as well.
Well, and to have these wines in your wardrobe, in your cellar, if you will, and just pull out, you don't feel bad opening up a $20 bottle of wine on a Monday night, right? That's also an exciting part to enjoy that European lifestyle here in the New World.
Absolutely.
And as we move on to our very last wine, which is a very interesting grape varietal, I know we've been discovering our noble grapes of the world, but we are diving into a hybrid grape, and it is called Baco Noir.
Yeah, and this is something that is, again, we were talking about notions of being distinctly from Ontario, distinctly from our appellations in Ontario as well. This is something that is going to be a future star, in my opinion. This is going to be a varietal that a lot of people and a lot of producers are going to find. They're going to put their mark on. They're going to express it in their own way. And I think it's going to be really well received by the public. Just give it a couple of years, but even right now, Sandbanks, Prince Edward County again, Baco Noir. Really, really nice fresh cherry notes. Really, really nice cranberry notes as well. Beautiful thing about this wine that you find is that you often get almost like a smoky characteristic as well that really lends itself to, barbecue, like we had mentioned before. But at the same time, a savory note as well. Something almost like even, a cured bacon or something, or even just like a chocolate note as well.
Definitely chocolate covered bacon, like all over that. I could even pair this with a chocolate cake. I mean,
Yeah.
for an abstract pairing to kind of pull out there, but
Absolutely, because I think even as these wines go, I think this might be the highest, the wine with the highest RS. So I mean, like you said, like nice fresh Black Forest cake.
yeah, exactly.
With something like the Baco Noir, I think would go incredibly well.
Yeah, it's a dynamite pairing, and I think there's a movement right now in wine and amongst wine enthusiasts, wine lovers, sommeliers even, that we're really embracing this natural wine movement, and a lot of that is unfiltration. It's wild grapes. It's a lot of hybrid grapes actually that are across the world and into the globe are getting made by different people in different ways, and so there's this openness to adventure in the world of wine, and so Baco Noir does have a cult following, though. I do know some people that are sort of Baco Noir fanatics, and I love it. Meeting somebody who loves Baco Noir. I love Baco Noir too, and it's like one of those things where you're just like, oh my God, you just kind of zone out over Baco Noir, because it is a very unique grape. We only make it here in Canada, in Ontario. I don't know too many places other in the world that make it, and so it's a super unique way to talk about it if you're a wine enthusiast.
Absolutely, to wear our passion on our sleeves, as we were saying just a second ago.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that this wine is it's definitely worth exploring. I think there's a couple different variations of it across Ontario, so you could even do a Baco Noir tasting at home.
Absolutely.
And it does have this gaminess though too. So it's got tobacco, it's got chocolate, it's got fruit. It has all of these sort of almost like this smorgasbord of aromas and profiles, which makes it such a cool wine to pair with.
Yeah, incredibly versatile as well. Even doing something like we were talking about chocolate cake a second ago, pair it up with, pulled pork, a little bit of coleslaw, put that in a sandwich, something like this, again, would pair exceptionally well. Or, use it for Taco Tuesday or something.
Exactly. And I always say never be afraid to cook with the wines that you're drinking. So if in a pulled pork, whether that's in your crock pot or something, put some wine in it. Like have some fun with it. Because the more that wine gets added to the food that you're cooking, I mean, the more actual fun you're going to have, not only in the kitchen and at the dining room table, but it's actually going to all work out on your plate and on your palate. Well, Evan, it's been such an amazing time tasting these wonderful wines, and it's been a pleasure tasting them with you and discovering things that are in our own backyard, and reaffirming to us why we love the region so much and why we're so passionate about it.
And reintroducing these wines to a new generation of customers as well. These are, again, we've talked about the fact that these are some noble varieties, some things that Ontario is only doing. So again, this would be the perfect time to go out and explore, go out and try something new,
As we say, pair it forward. Make sure that you're, enjoying the fruits of the labor of our backyard winemaking friends, from all the grapes to our friends and family who are in the farmers, who are the restaurateurs, who are the people doing all the work in our food. Today, we're going to pair it forward with our wine and our food pairings.
Yeah, a beautiful way to kind of look at it as well is, if you feel comfortable, go one or two neighborhoods over, find that new restaurants, they're probably going to find their new favorite customer, and you are going to find your new favorite restaurateur, because they probably have had a little bit of difficulty in the last couple of months, so they would probably appreciate the patronage.
And find a new wine to discover. Ontario has so much greatness out there for you to uncover and taste. People can come see you at the LCBO, or how else can we get these wines?
Absolutely. You can shop at our brick and mortar at LCBO. You can shop online at lcbo.com, and you can take part in the same day pickup program.
Well, that's it for today, folks. We hope you had an amazing virtual tasting, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. So here's to local, Evan. Cheers.
Here's to local. Cheers. Thank you.